O'Win Willson
is cooking.
Girl, you know it's true.
Oh, yes, guy. OverDrive Hour number 2. And the studio has been invaded. Brother and Luke Wilson are there. Jim Tatti and Dave Feschuk in parts unknown. Look at these guys. They're all revved up. Luke, how are you?
I'd be better if the Falcons covered last night, I'll be honest.
Oh, sorry to hear that, guy.
It'd be better if you knew how to pick winners. Is that what you're saying, Luke?
I got to tip my cap. You guys have done a good job picking winners. My record's not actually terrible, but last night was a tough pill to swallow. The idea that, we can't cover 4.5 in a game to go to win your division pretty much because both teams have a softball, and we go to overtime and just lose the coin toss. At least a good friend of mine was on the coin toss for the Commanders, excuse me. But and then you just get absolutely dog walk right down the field. That was a tough pill to swallow. It was. I was really annoyed with that. And Raheem Morris not being able to call a timeout. I figured at this point probably a third grade person could manage the clock better than Raheem Morris did yesterday. But
seems to be an issue across the NFL though. I feel like this year more than any other year, I seem to be pulling my hair out with coaches. Chicago's done it a couple of times.
Chicago on Thursday was worse.
That was terrible.
That was worse than Raheem Morris. And Raheem Morris is. I actually thought Raheem Morris did a worse job in the first half, which he's getting a pass for because of the end of the game. Okay, but you said it. It's weird because there are things in the NFL that are very, intellectually driven, that are very hard to do, very hard to execute. You know what's not hard to execute? Calling a timeout, especially when you have a rookie quarterback and you throw the ball to midfield and it's inbounds and you have 2 timeouts left. You don't, I don't know if it's the physics of people having to run to the line of scrimmage. I get if it's a 2-yard gain and everybody's still there. You got to get O lineman up there. You got to get a rookie who's finishing up his second game to run to the line and call a play. Stop it. Call a timeout. We got one to play with still. We don't need that many more yards. But then you roll out some scrub kicker, okay, and we all know how I feel about that. And he's 12 yards short, and I don't cover, and now I'm on the verge of being eliminated this year, and I'm upset about it in case you can't tell.
Hey, Al's brother and Tat, man, I don't want to interject here, but this sounds like a man who is taking out his rage for being down +5 to Hayes and Bro.
That's true.
On coaches and kickers and everybody else but himself and the O-Dog. Am I right on that?
Well, I don't know where the O-Dog is, so I can't take my rage.
Was the O-Dog the brains of the operation the whole time?
No, he was the vibe guy.
Things have gone so south.
He was the vibe guy, and the vibe guy left.
It's gone so south since he left, though.
I've never hated picking spreads more than this year. The last couple of years, I'm always I'm humming, boom. Yeah, you miss the odd one, but you're feeling good. I sweat every spread. It's absolute misery.
The NFL, FanDuel and the odds makers are getting so good at this, though. They're getting so good that these games are right down to the wire. You look at the game that we picked the other day. The Vikings last night, that spread was at 1.5. 1.5. We were so close.
Yes.
We took the Packers plus 1.5. They lost by 2.
Yeah.
It's literally to within half a point.
It is. And again, last night it's 4.5, and you lose by 6, and it's tough. And Feschuk, you're right. I am annoyed. Now the funny thing is for me though is we're technically not done yet. So would it shock me if Al's brother pukes all over himself? He's gonna miss tonight. Okay. And now I've got 5 games I got to pick next week. So I do and the good news is I'm in control because I'm gonna have 3 picks. So if we get a win tonight, I'm picking 3 winners. So I need Al's bro to lose 2. It's not
no margin for error for you.
Yeah, there's
0.
no margin for error. But this is the one thing that shocked me while I'm on this rant is your captain, Hazy B, for all year has been spewing this nonsense that the regular season doesn't matter. And I don't know if we've got his tweet up, but somehow this man tweets saying, this will be us tonight with the Stanley Cup coming in. I'm not a hockey guy. Boys, I'm not a hockey guy, but I thought the Stanley Cup was given whoever wins the playoffs. Is that not what the Stanley Cup's for?
Look, depends on the city, guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Remember where you're seated.
Yeah,
good point.
Exactly.
Good point.
Look, it's step 1 to getting the Stanley Cup, okay?
Okay,
this
yeah,
is
your
step
guys
1.
in the driver's seat.
Step 2 is sweeping this whole thing with the championship.
That would be a real tough pill for me to swallow.
Yeah.
It'd be really tough.
I had a question for you, though.
Yes.
To go back to that Vikings and Packers game from last night, which close to Jordan Love coming back on that thing, but Sam Darnold had a great game, and Darnold's been unbelievable, this team. They won, 14 games. Why do I keep hearing that the Vikings still might decide to go in a different direction? Does that make sense to you after the season that Darnold's had?
There's a tweet. This guy is the biggest fraud. After all of the nonsense about the regular season doesn't matter because he's 0 for 2 in the last couple of years. He's 1 game away from clinching, and this is what we get? What a fraud.
We're going to win the regular season championship. And
that's the regular season championship
the
trophy?
Actual title.
Oh, okay. But back to what? This is unbelievable. So, I sit here and say, first and foremost, if you're a Vikings fan, it's a great problem to have. You look at the situation and the decision they have to make, and I don't necessarily think there's a wrong answer. Do you go with the youngster J.J. McCarthy, whom you drafted, who you obviously in that draft process you thought was going to be the future of your franchise, or do you bring Sam Darnold back, who's playing at a tremendously high level? It's much better to have those options than to, say, be the Cleveland Browns right now.
Yeah.
So I would say that first and foremost for the Vikings. But it's a weird one for me because I believe your best chance at winning consistently is what the Niners had last year. And even this year, if they were healthy, which they clearly were not. But you get a guy who can distribute the ball, play the game of football well, in Brock Purdy. Does he have the most electric arm in the NFL? No. But I think Brock Purdy plays, the X and O game of football extremely well. You load him up with a great roster, and you say, hey, we're balanced across the board, and here we go. And I look at it, to me, offensively, and obviously Jared Goff is not, a Sam Darnold quarterback at the moment, but the Lions are built that way, where, to me, across the board, they're loaded on offense. You got a great O-line. You got Laporta at tight end, who's on his rookie deal, but I think is a very, very good tight end. Amon-Ra is an all-pro receiver. You got 2 great backs there. And then your support guys, the receiver, Jameson Williams, is going to take the top off. Patrick's bigger body. I think they're getting Khalif Raymond, kind of be more of that shifty guy. He's coming back off injury soon. So that, to me, is the best way to build a roster. Now, again, I look at this Vikings team and I say, hey, you already paid Jefferson. You got Addison, and you got T.J. Hawkinson, who's also in a big deal. So, yes, I believe Sam Darnold should be paid, but to me, if you can get J.J. McCarthy up to a place where he's close to Sam Darnold, use that extra $50 million on 2 DBs, and now tell me where the weakness in the Vikings is. And I mean this sincerely. People forget the Vikings' run defense is number 2 in the league, yards per game and yards per carry. They are susceptible. I think they're a bottom 4 team yards per game in pass defense. They're susceptible on the back end. So I sit here and say, that's the chess game you play. I don't think it's a bad decision to pay Sam, but I think for longevity purposes, you probably want to go JJ. But the school thought no one talks about is if you really love Sam Darnold that much and you think he's the future, I bet you can get a haul for JJ McCarthy right now. Especially with the quarterbacks coming out in this draft.
Bad draft.
You come in here and you say you want your first-round quarterback? We've got him, but you're going to be paying a lot more in a first-round pick for it.
I personally would go down that route if I were the Vikings. I think they're a great football team, and it's outstanding to me that here we are, boys, in Week 17, and a week from now, they still have an opportunity to not only win the division, clinch the first seed, and get the bye week. And they're doing this all with Sam Darnold at the helm. And the fact that if they win, they can do all that. But the loser gets the 5th seed.
And what's crazy, it's funny, and not to the same degree because they have better records, but I remember we didn't play each other, but the year we won the Super Bowl in Seattle, we went into Week 17. We only played 16 games that year, and we were 12-3. And we played the Rams, and it was the same situation where we had to beat the Rams, who earlier in the year we had won 9-7, I want to say. We always struggled with Fisher's Rams for whatever reason. And this is back when they were in St. Louis. So I remember sitting there being like, man, for sitting here at 12-3, the idea that if we lose to the Rams, we don't even get a home playoff game is insane. Assuming the Lions win tonight, you're going to have a 14-win team on the road in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That is wild. It's hard for me to wrap my head around. Testament to those guys, though. I mean, both teams, they are very, very talented and very good football team, and very well coached.
So, Luke.
And Luke, when you look beyond, sorry, go ahead, Tat, man.
No, go. Okay, so when you look at the standings, if I asked you to pick the best team in the NFL right now, would we be guilty of looking past the Chiefs?
Yes. Tat, man, this is what's driving me nuts about this whole. I don't know where this narrative came from. First and foremost, the Chiefs are 15-1. Okay. Oh, one possession games. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. Everybody has one possession games. Oh, they haven't looked good. You've won 15 games. And let's be honest, if they were starting everybody, it would probably be 16. Okay, we'll see what happens. I still think with Carson Wentz, they got a shot to beat the Broncos. A little overrated. But then on top of that, we love to sit here and talk about Patrick Mahomes because he hasn't had his best year. The defense has been incredible. The points per game they're giving up is elite. They make a ton of big plays. There's been moments where it's not flashy, but they certainly play well in the red zone. I sit here and say we've totally forgot about the defensive side of the ball. And the next thing I'll say is that since Hollywood Brown's been out here, the offense has looked wildly, wildly better. So, yeah, if anybody is sitting here saying that the Chiefs are not the favorite, I'm not saying they can't get beat. I think Buffalo might have a shot. Probably not, but I think Buffalo might have a shot. I think Baltimore has a shot. If Joe Beasy gets into the playoffs by some miracle, he definitely has a shot because he's playing out of his mind right now. Now, you got a weak defense. But to me, the Chiefs are definitely the favorite.
Luke, I was wondering how you sort of look at the philosophy around Week 18. There are a couple things to still be decided. There's seeding to still be decided, but a lot of the teams are locked in, including the Eagles. And you got Saquon Barkley with a chance at making a run at an historic record, specifically Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. He needs 101 yards. If you're the head coach of that team, Luke, do you play Saquon in a meaningless game for the vanity of the record, or do you say, Saquon, I'm sorry, buddy, we got to rest you. We got to think about the playoffs?
So a couple things there. I think for Saquon, you ask him. He deserves that. You rush for 2,000 yards. Saquon should make that call. And I was a bit surprised, to be honest with you, Feschuk, where I thought, they took him out late in the game because they were winning. I thought they were going to leave him in because he'd already played. He's already warmed up. I'm sitting there thinking, try and get him another 40 last night so that maybe he only has to play the first half against the Giants. That's kind of where my head was going. But I do think you have that conversation with Saquon. And if Saquon says, hey, I want to get this record, you go out there and you roll. Again, you don't play football thinking, hey, we're worried about getting injured. I know, like the fans, that's the idea. But I think there'd be a lot of offensive linemen as well who would want that record and sit there and be like, hey, I was a part of this record. Like to me, being a 2,000-yard rusher in itself, as a guy who played with Marshawn Lynch, we obviously never got 2,000 yards, but that would have been something that I would have been wildly, wildly proud of. So I think that there are other guys that probably want to play to sit here and say, hey, we were the greatest rushing attack in NFL history.
So would that be a conversation within the locker room?
For sure.
Would they go up to Sirianni and be like, we want to do this?
Yes.
Let us do this.
So I think this can be very, very player-driven. Or if guys are banged up, that plays into as well. Everyone's playing with an injury at this point. What I'd also say, kind of finish your question, is when it comes to, resting guys, and we'll see, and I could be wrong here, but, let's take the Chiefs, for example. I sit here and say, okay, you got the 1 seed. So you played Saturday. So you go 8 days to this next Sunday. I haven't seen exactly where they're playing. Are they playing Saturday or Sunday?
I think Sunday.
Okay. So you go 8 days. Let's say Mahomes doesn't play. And then you go another 7 days, and he's got the bye week. And then you go another 7 days before he plays. So you're looking at 20 to 22 days before the guy takes a live bullet of a football snap. And I don't love that. If I'm Andy Reid, I'm sitting down with Patrick Mahomes, and I'm saying, listen, this is what I think. Let's see how your body feels, see how the ankle is. But I think you come in here and you prep to play the Broncos like it's a full game. In practice, we're still giving you a lot of reps. Carson, I'm sorry, you'll get a couple more reps, but you're not going to be getting – we need to keep Patty Mahomes in rhythm, sharp, ready to go. Boom. You come out here, you warm up like it's a regular game, you start the game off. If I'm Andy Reid, I'm going to Patrick Mahomes. I say no Superman plays. I don't care if it's 3rd and 3 and you're scrambling and you need a yard. You're sliding. We're punting. And I'm giving them a drive. I'm giving them maybe 2, at most. Play the first quarter. Let's get a little more rhythm. Let's keep that thing going. Get the sweat in there. Feel pretty good about it. Again, we're handing the ball off a lot. We're doing quick throws. We're protecting them. But that's kind of where my head goes because I wouldn't want a guy outside of live bullets for 21 days. That's just not where my head goes when it comes to playing guys. And you'd say, oh, he's at risk of getting injured. Well, you're an odds guy. Al's brother's an odds guy. Clearly, he's made some good picks this year. I sit here and say Patrick Mahomes has, I believe, played every snap this year, minus a couple when he had an
injury, the ankle.
Okay, but
didn't miss that plays into it because he's nursing the injury. That might play
into it. But
like Saquon's not.
Correct.
Right.
To me, I sit here and say, all right, the chances that you get hurt, that you miss 2 weeks in 12 plays of football, 6 of which you'll be handing the ball off, are very, very slim. So that to me is a risk I'm willing to take. I think it's good for the mentals. I think it's good for the body. Very short leash. Hey, we're playing 1 quarter. We're getting you out of there. And you get the rest of the tennis shoes on the sideline. Take the helmet off. Take the shoulder pads off. Help the boys out. And next week you get off too. That's kind of where my head would be with a lot of resting players.
Where do you have Josh Allen's season ranked?
And ranked as far as his own personal play or as far against others?
No, who he is.
By far his best, and there's one stat, and it's the turnovers. I don't care if he's had better numbers throwing here or there or whatever. The fact that he's done what he's done by never turning the ball over pretty much has been wildly impressive. I think he's clearly taken a step in the right direction in that sense. When they've needed him to use his legs, he's been phenomenal. So I would say by far his best football playing season. And it's funny because back to my Chiefs rant earlier, but there's a lot of people out here that say the Chiefs are fraudulent. The Chiefs lost 1 game to the Buffalo Bills where Josh Allen on 4th and 2 turned into Superman and scored. And it's Chiefs are frauds. This is again, I'm assuming Josh is probably going to win MVP. The Chiefs are 1 play from the league MVP away from being undefeated and in the conversation of the best team ever. Okay, I again, we'll go back to Josh, but to me, there's been moments where you can't play football better than Josh Allen has played this year. So I would give it his best season for sure.
One of the stats that sticks out to me about that season too, this year that Josh has had, since November 10th, this is December 30th? Since November 10th, he's taken 1 sack.
Yeah.
That's it. So that offense is not starting from behind the sticks very often.
No, they're on. I'm telling you. And to me, the Lions game was wildly impressive. I thought his most impressive game was the loss against the Rams.
Honestly.
To me, that was more of an MVP case than anything he's done. That should have been a 30-point loss.
It's 6 touchdowns himself.
It was crazy.
3 passing, 3 rushing. You lose the game. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So I think Josh is playing really well. But the AFC, I do think not getting the 1 seed makes things tougher. That's not a wildly crazy take. But I sit here and I am convinced. I'll be honest. I am convinced that the NFL is rigged. After 2 years of TSN here, I'm convinced now. I would be shocked if the Finns got any breaks from the refs next week. Any breaks, because the idea that the 2 best players on planet Earth right now, I'm not saying career-wise, but the 2 best players on planet Earth right now are Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. And the idea that good old Roger Goodell and the Illuminati that runs the NFL can have that matchup in the first round of the playoffs, that's what dreams are made of.
Yeah.
So if somehow that occurs, I think the Bills have a very, very tough way. They're potentially going to have to play Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes. So that's an absolute gauntlet. But, if Josh plays the way he's done, they got a shot.
So if you had to pick it, Luke, I know picking hasn't been your forte lately, but if you had to pick between those 3 teams.
Easy now. Picking spreads.
Okay, picking spreads. If you're picking straight up, you just got 3 teams. You got the Broncos, the Bengals, and the Dolphins, all with a chance here. Who do you got?
Feschuk, do not do that. Do not do that. Do not. Thank you, Fest. You're a man of integrity. Doogie's laughing over there. Sorry, I was too distracted by the dummy beside me. You said between the Chiefs, who and who?
It's in terms of the teams that still have a mathematical chance of getting in for that final AFC playoff spot. You got the Broncos, the Bengals, and the Dolphins.
Yes.
The Illuminati notwithstanding, who do you like squeezing in there?
My head would say, believe it or not, the Dolphins. I think the Chiefs I think they win. I think Carson Wentz is a veteran guy. I think that Spagnuolo is still going to draft up a great game plan for this game. And you got to think that on a Super Bowl caliber team and a team coached by Andy Reid, they're not rolling in bums. There are some teams where the backups look really lost. I would say on the teams that I were on that was very, very good, our backups were elite because first and foremost, we were the best team in the league. But secondly, it was like, hey, if somebody goes down, you got to be ready to play a Super Bowl caliber football. So I would be surprised, even with Carson Wentz in there. I think the Broncos are 1-7 against teams over 500. I think the Broncos lose. I mean, that could flip on me. I could get burned there. Like you said, I've had some bad picks. So to me right now, my head says the Fins. But I think that it would not shock me if there was a couple phantom calls. Similar, by the way, I would have been going nuts. You want to talk about a phantom call? The field goal that the Vikings had where they called the Green Bay guy offside, that didn't even happen. Anyways, so you get a couple offside calls, and next thing you know, the Fins get jammed up. Aaron Rodgers decides to actually play good, which don't get me started on that. And now all of a sudden, Joe Burrow's in. I mean, he's got to beat the Steelers, and I know TSN Godfather Dennis Barham's listening right now, and he's probably mad at me. But I think that they probably blow the doors off the Steelers the way Joe Burrow's playing.
Blow the doors, Doogie. We got to make sure that's a pick next week. If we make this, here's the thing.
I'll tell you right now, if I have the pick with the Steelers and the Bengals, if the spread is 7, I'm taking the Bengals.
I had a question. If we win this pick tonight, we got to make the pick in a couple minutes here. If we win this pick tonight, Hayes and I have locked it in.
All you get is what we got last year.
But do we bother even making picks next week?
Of course.
We'll just take a knee.
Fraud?
I'll make the picks. I'm just saying there's nothing you could possibly do to win at that point.
Listen, I was told last year
that all you get
for winning the season is the ability to pick what games we have to pick in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You said that. So did Hayes, and I don't know where he is. So all I'm saying is, it's a tough year. In the words of Riley Moss, DB for the Broncos, sometimes you got to eat a sandwich. That's what he said when he lost the game last week. I'm eating my sandwich right now, potentially. But don't think for 1 minute that we're going to lose this playoffs. And don't think we're not coming in here with the Stanley Cup photos.
All right, we'll see.
Doogie, I'm done with you too, buddy. I'm done with you. And the quick Twitter updates, it's ridiculous. You're a fraud too. You're a scumbag.
Whoa, guy.
Wow. Luke, he said you didn't like bread.
You said what?
You didn't like bread when you're talking about that sandwich. He stood up for you.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Wow. So if you had to inherit one of these teams, one of these also-ran teams, and I'm going to take the Niners out, all these struggling teams, which one, in your opinion, is the easiest one to fix?
The Bears. I know that's a wild take, but
Yeah.
I sit here and say to myself, first and foremost, last year the Bears' defense was good, were they not?
Yeah, good defense.
They should be better than what their stats showed this year. They have good players. I'm not on the Caleb Williams believe train like everybody else is. I also take zero stock in NFL scouts and what they say because I've met these guys, and I'd say 8 out of 10 of them are complete dummies. But outside of that, they claim this guy is a generational talent. I do think he's got a great arm. There's a lot of things he does right now that I'm like, okay, we need to leave that at USC. But that being said, he clearly has not been coached well, and we talked about to the point where their current coach doesn't know how to call a timeout. So I sit here and say, man, you get a real staff in there, a bit of a culture changer, perhaps Pete Carroll. That's the rumor right now. And now all of a sudden you're looking at an offense that has Caleb Williams, again, supposed to be pretty good. The tight end Cole Kmet, I watched the guy. I think he's a great all-around tight end. He's kind of in prison right now playing in Chicago like everybody is, but I think he's got a lot of ability. DJ Moore, to me, is another guy. I feel terrible for the guy because he probably should be considered a top 5 receiver, but instead he's had to start in Carolina, and now he's ended here. Again, he's in ultimate prison. You just draft Rome Oduzze, and then you sit here and say, Keenan Allen has looked great. I mean, he's made some big plays. So I think the Bears are an offensive lineman or two away from being a very, very strong, and a coach, which is the big one, football team in this league.
AB, time now for the Monday night pick. I don't know if we have any dramatic music, but maybe
he already made it. He already made it.
So,
and he should be punished for making it early. It should be a 2-game punishment. But Doogie's a fraud.
I'm not changing the pick. I mean, I still feel very strongly. It's still at 3.5.
Okay.
The exact same line as it was the other day, and I got the exact same feeling. The gut feeling's the same. The TG, the tremendous information, all lines up with the Detroit Lions.
Let's say that Brock Purdy shows up tonight and they cover this thing. Let's say they lose by 3.
How likely is that to happen, given the fact that this guy is missing 3 of his offensive linemen, including Trent Williams? No Christian McCaffrey. The guy's at Garendo's playing on a hobbled ankle. How likely is it to happen that this guy actually shows up tonight?
It's likely. It's not a great defense. He's not going against the 85 Bears.
Sure, but it's still the problem is the offensive line is what I have with this team. It's not a great secondary, I'll give you that, but I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was digging into the numbers to see Detroit. Detroit's numbers against the pass are not awful. You look at the team; they actually rank 3rd among quarterback ratings allowed and 3rd in completion percentage.
Okay, that's because they've been up 38 points for half these games, just sitting there pinning their ears back.
Possibly.
Anyways, I'm not.
They're going to be up by 30 points again tonight.
I don't. Vegas disagrees. Vegas disagrees with that statement. Could be right, could be wrong. But this is what I will say, though. For all this chatter, is there a world in which somehow the Niners cover tonight, and all of a sudden Saturday I got the first pick, and boom, I just smacked that thing, and now the number's 3, and then bam, you puke on yourself Saturday night, and now the number's 2, and now there's 3 games. There's 3 games Sunday. And it's my pick. Boom! Smacking it. And now all of a sudden the number's 1 with 2 to go. At that point, how panicked are you? And do not think, I swear to you, if we run the table and win, I will come in here and dunk on everyone. I will burn the studio to the ground. Doogie's getting a swirly in the bathroom. Hayes better be here. It'll be carnage. It'll be carnage.
I'll tell you what I got to say about that, Luke.
The first domino falls tonight. I need 6 in a row. 6 in a row.
I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening, Luke. We're going to win tonight, wrap this thing up, and next weekend doesn't even matter. We'll probably throw those games to give you a bone to make you feel good going into the playoffs.
Hey.
But it all starts tonight. It all starts with my guy, Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell's going to get this team ready to go. This game doesn't mean – people keep saying this game doesn't mean anything to the Lions.
That's
right. Every game means something to Dan Campbell.
I don't know. It's
every
funny.
Single game.
There's certain narratives that I laugh about, like leaving from playing to being in the media. And I'm not just saying this. When I was playing, I didn't have time to think about what the media was saying. I never even paid attention. I hear these ideas and I'm like, who comes up with these things?
Where it means nothing?
Yes. I agree. The idea that Dan Campbell is going to sit here and say, oh, this game doesn't mean it. I mean, look at the defense, for example. If you're Aaron Glenn, the D coordinator, your roster's been decimated. You've had 45 injuries. You don't think for 1 minute he's sitting here saying, hey, I've got to figure out with some of the new guys, some of the new combinations, who's healthy, what kind of defense we're going to run, play, execute in the playoffs, what guys can do, what they like doing, what they don't. There's so many things. You don't think that there's guys that might get a shot that have been sitting behind whomever. Let's take the running back room. Imagine being the 3rd guy behind Montgomery and Gibbs. You're probably sitting there going, man, these guys are tremendous, but if I ever get my shot, I can prove to the NFL that I'm good. You don't think it means something to him?
Contracts are on the line for everyone.
Bingo.
Playing.
You think the coaches are going to be like, hey, this guy's grinding on scout team all year and probably could start on a different team, but he's jammed up behind Sam Laporta at tight end, who's a stud, and now all of a sudden I'm not going to care? It doesn't mean anything to me? That's not the NFL. So I don't know who writes these narratives. Dan Campbell doesn't care about this game. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. So I'm glad you said that.
And that's why I feel good about the Lions tonight. They're going to put the full throttle pedal to the metal.
You know what? I felt good about the Falcons. And I just need a kicker to make a 56-yard kick, and we're not having this conversation because it's 3 and you lose tonight and it's 2. But instead, I'm getting jammed and I'm eating my sandwich.
Partsy, line
Lions,
1.
baby. Tatti, we're on your line.
You better hope, Doogie, because the swirly's coming. You're losing 6 in a row.
That's insane.
Just buy him some cologne. He'll be happy.
Tatti, give me the Lions. This is what we do for the Lions. Give it to me. That's the
Tatti,
Lions
go.
can right there.
Tatti,
that's right,
that's tough.
Tap, That's right,
Where
Tap,
is it? Where is it? There it is.
Yeah.
You know what's unfortunate was that there's no way to tie.
I know.
I do think
No 40.
Doogie, if, let's say, hypothetically.
If there's a push, there's a way to tie. If there is a push. If we push tonight and you run the table next week, I believe it would end in a tie. So it's still mathematically.
But even
not this week, but let's say there is a
one.
push at some point. If one of these games, we're going to have to pick next week, if it's possible.
Yeah.
You will have to make sure that we have at least one game that's on a flat number, no hook.
That's fair.
Just to make it
a lot
possible.
of people wanted the race. A lot
I
of people
know.
wanted that race, but it didn't work out. We don't know yet.
Hey, the Super Bowl might end up tied at one point. It might have to settle it for the Super Bowl win.
This was a spirited half hour, I got to say.
Thank you, Tatti. I come in here and bring the heat.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
You did.
It's
too bad you can't reach across and do something with Al's brother.
That's for off the camera.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Coming up next, the highly anticipated Yes Guy, No Guy. This is Overdrive on TSN 4 and TSN 1050. Oh, Yes Guy. Overdrive continues on TSN 4, TSN 1050. Jim Tatti, Dave Feschuk, and the Cologne, Mr. Cologne, Doogie. How are you, Doogie?
How's it going, boys?
Good.
No head in the toilet yet.
No.
Not until the NFL picks are over.
Gonna get a swirly guy.
I definitely don't want that. That would be brutal.
No, of course
not happening around here.
Who wants a swirly guy? Could you point out that person to me?
Never. No one.
No.
No one would.
Thank you.
Especially in a work setting. Come on.
Yeah. Well, it's not that much better at home, guy.
Very true.
Okay, time now for my favorite game, and because I'm here at Yes Guy headquarters, I can do this.
Yes Guy, No Guy.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, drivers and passengers, time now for the Overdrive officially sanctioned edition of Yes Guy, No Guy. Doogie, go ahead, sir.
All right, boys, let's fire it up with some Maple Leafs talk. We got a double dose of Islanders action on Tuesday and Thursday, an afternoon matinee in Toronto tomorrow. And we saw the storyline for the goalies throughout the weekend. We saw a pretty heavy win against the Red Wings on Friday, and then Saturday came along. Matt Murray was in the crease. Hildeby got sent down, 4 goals against, and Alex Ovechkin empty net goal, and it just didn't go well for the Maple Leafs there. And now we have to know the importance of Anthony Stolarz. So yes guy, no guy. Anthony Stolarz is the MVP of the Maple Leafs leading up to this point of the season, after what we've seen from the goaltending conundrum throughout the last couple of weeks.
Go ahead, Dave.
I'm a big yes guy on this. I mean, and the past 8 games with Stolarz out, recovering from that procedure to remove the pebble from his knee, is telling us exactly that, right? Like they're 4-4. Their team save percentage, guys, without Stolarz is .869 in these 8 games. Stolarz, of course, have been up near the league lead, if not in the league lead for most of the year at .927. So, yeah, he's been essential, and I think he has been, by extension, the most valuable guy on this team.
I'm going to have to go no guy. I'm going to go with Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner. I just think that he's reached an incredible level. That contract situation doesn't even seem to exist, and wouldn't want to know where they would be without him. So I'm going to go no guy, Doogie.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Tatti. Many people circle that name, Mitch Marner, and that's for my next question here for you guys. 50 points currently on the season, a pretty heavy pace, and that's eclipsing the 100-point mark. So yes guy, no guy. Mitch Marner is a lock to reach 100 points this season with the Maple Leafs.
I'm a yes guy on this. It feels like it's happening. Like he's on 110-point pace right now, 28-goal pace, career highs in pretty much every metric you can dream up. And guess what? They're going to need it. Like with Matthews out, it provides more opportunity for Marner to shine, but it also provides the necessity for Marner to shine. And he's historically risen to it, and certainly he's proven that this year.
I'm going to go yes guy. I'm going to call it no-brainer yes guy. He's going to exceed 100 points, no problem.
Yeah, and you saw in 2021-22, 97 points, 22-23, 99. Now playing in a contract season, you could definitely see and notice on the ice that he's taking up a a high notch. So a yes guy for me as well. One more question. Circling around the Maple Leafs and Capitals from what we saw over the weekend. Alex Ovechkin scored yet again yesterday. That's 2 straight games with the goal. I have to say it. Alex Ovechkin will break Wayne Gretzky's goal-scoring record this season. Yes guy or no guy?
Yes guy for me. I mean, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer in the Mitch Marner 100-point category because, look, it's not going to be easy, obviously. Like, it's not going to be easy for Marner to get 100, but he needs 25 goals in 46 games, assuming health. And obviously you can't assume that in this league, but he's been among the more durable superstars in the history of the sport.
Agreed.
I mean, that's below his career average in terms of goals per game. He's been able to do that. Of course, he had 15 and 18 before he got hurt. I just think he's got the line mates. He's got a team that's rolling, and I think he will, by osmosis in part, that'll carry him to the record before the season's out.
Yeah, I got to go yes guy as well. Saw him play yesterday as well. The shot's not going anywhere. You know that he's going to take it. You know that he's going to be set up, and somehow he still scores. So that's an emphatic, hard, and all capital letters, yes guy.
And before I get to the next yes guy, no guy, you both have been covering sports for a pretty long time. And just a question, have you ever seen a goal scorer of his type in the NHL? Like covering the league, watching the league? Like, is there any other ones that come up to mind for you guys?
I would go with Bossy.
There's never been
Curry.
one quite like him, Doogie.
Yeah.
Bossy, Curry,
Look,
Brett
we saw
Hull.
those guys. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Hull, he kind of calls to mind Hull in some ways, but the fact that he sort of has brought the physical element, he was essentially a guy that would run through people in his younger days and still occasionally does. The fact that he hasn't gotten hurt, the fact that, we have never seen a shot quite like his.
Good.
And when you look at it adjusted for era, just purely mathematically, guys, like he became the best goal scorer adjusted for adjusted for era a long time ago. Like he was making the case that he was the best goal scorer, considering he came up in a time when goal scoring was tougher than it was in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, to me, he's one of a kind, and he will stand alone.
Would love to have seen Bossy without the back problem. So there was a guy who was just lights out with the goal scoring, and because cross-checking was a thing to do after somebody scored, he had a big bad back problem, and his career was curtailed.
And you know what's crazy about this, boys, is that we saw him on the ice. It was a 5-week process, and he came back on the ice in like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks later, already skating and flying. So that says something about his character and how much this goal-scoring record actually might mean to him. Like, that's what stands out here. Like,
yeah.
It really
means
does.
a lot. You can tell.
A great guy.
Yeah.
It means a lot to the franchise too. It means a lot to his teammates, and they're going to help him. They're going to help him get it. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Let's stick to some hockey talk. And we saw a debacle of a performance for Canada on Saturday, a 3-2 loss in hands of the Latvians, and not many people expected that. They bounced back against Germany with a 3-0 win, and we know what tomorrow means for this country. Canada, U.S. in Ottawa, 7:30 on TSN. Just going to be spectacular. And yes guy, no guy, despite the 2 unusual performances from Canada, they will 100% play in the gold medal game. Like, it's a lock. It's happening.
I'm a no guy on the phrasing, Doogie. I mean, I just don't like the idea that this is a 100% lock because it's junior hockey. This is Canada finished 6th in this tournament last year because one loss can derail you, right? It's a very unpredictable tournament, as we've spoken about here. But I do like their chances. I really do. If I had to put a Jerry's percentage on it, it's high because I do think the Latvian loss and the close game to the Germans is the best thing that can happen to a Canadian team in many ways. Shocks them into attention here. Dave Cameron's got their full attention because of the fact that they're on the brink of embarrassing themselves out there. So I like their chances, but I can't go as high as 100. I'd give it about an 85.
Yeah, I'm going to say technically yes, guy. That was a Friday night game, and they didn't play bad. Come on, it was an 8-round shootout. I mean, I wouldn't crap on them for that. They haven't allowed a 5-on-5 goal, which is noteworthy. They've only scored a few. I like this team because it's kind of different from any other team. Canada in that the structure's there, the puck possession is there. The goals aren't. So, I mean, this isn't a bad problem to have. Tomorrow night's game is huge, but I think I'm not going to guarantee it, but I think they're going to get into the gold medal game. So sort of a tentative yes guy.
And before I move on to the next one, I want you guys to hear from Dave Cameron. He spoke about last night's game and kind of used a word that stuck out to me. So we'll hear from Dave Cameron, and I want you guys to pick up on what he said.
Real solid. Outside of the fact, I think there's two things. We're a little bit snake-bitten on the offensive side of it, but it's not from lack of effort or lack of playing. And then we got to cut down the penalties. It's ruining our momentum.
Snake-bitten. Yeah. That's the word that sticks out to me.
Well, they are. They've had
That's
some
what one
posts.
loss does to you.
Yeah, they have had some posts, but I agree with the penalty thing. There's some of those penalties they're getting called on are the other team is sort of getting under their skin physically, and they're getting sucked into some things there.
Agreed.
But it's a tale as old as time, guys. You can't go into double IHF tournaments and then be surprised when the reffing is different than it is in the CHL. I mean, everybody knows that it's going to be different. We've been watching it for decades. It's always been different. And if the coaching staff isn't getting that message to players early and letting them know it's going to be called differently, then they're not doing their jobs.
Doogie, not really a yes guy, no guy thing. I'm just looking at they don't like it.
Oh.
My staff doesn't like it.
Really? Headquarters doesn't agree?
No, the LLP people are going, well, what's this all about?
My.
Yeah.
Well, I might have one more.
Question there.
I might have one more that the headquarters will like, I hope.
Okay.
Yes guy, no guy. The Raptors will never be in playoff contention as Scotty Barnes being the number one option on the team. They just lost their 10th straight game.
Ooh.
Oh, that's tough.
You mean this season? Or are you saying
No,
never, ever?
I'm saying in his tenure with the Toronto Raptors. No. I'm bringing the heat.
Oh.
Well, I'm a no guy on that. I think they haven't even seen, the future is now, as they called it in the offseason when they signed Barnes and a guy named Emmanuel Quickley, who you may have heard of, but you haven't seen play in an awfully long time because he's only been out there for mere minutes this season. But, until I can see this team with Barnes and Quickley, given that they've invested $400 million in these two guys and they haven't played together this season, I'm not going to condemn them to never being in playoff contention in the Scotty Barnes era. But I'll tell you what, Doogie, it's not looking good. There's no consolation in what they've been doing lately. And Scotty Barnes is as much responsible for it as anybody, and it's not a good look on his resume.
All I can say is no guy. They will be at some point in contention with him in the time that he's here. This year is a disaster. There's no way around it, but it's fixable. There's a lot of good components there. It's just injury problems, and it's too late in the season. You got a 10-game skid. It's hard to come out of that stuff.
Yeah, and we heard from Dave Cameron saying snake bitten, and Darko Rajakovic and Scotty Barnes also had some glaring comments to describe last night's loss.
Right now, as a team, we hit the wall. It's very simple. We hit the wall. We look tired. We look drained. Guys are not in a rhythm, and that's reality where we're at right now. And we gotta find a way how to get out of it. And the only one way to get out of it, it's always the same answer. It's back to work and staying together and watching the film and going through practice and addressing the right things and then getting better.
We just got to come out with a better effort every single night. We just can't allowing ourselves to get down in that position. Beginning of the game, we could have made better choices. We had some turnovers, myself included. But every single game, we just can't allow ourselves to get down to this point and keep letting teams every single game 130 points each and every single night or more for these last 3 games. That's just unacceptable. We just got to take it upon ourselves to come out with a better effort.
Unacceptable, not fun. That's two things you do not want to hear from a professional sports team.
They need 48 minutes. They don't get it far too often. They get 40 minutes, but not 48.
Guys, I got news for you. If they're tired and drained, I got news for them.
They got
January. 50 games to go. They're 32 games in. How can they be tired? They're pro athletes.
That's what happens when you lose 10 straight. Are we going to play something to chew on next?
We will.
Okay, we're going to do that next. This is OverDrive on TSN 4 and TSN 1050. OverDrive, Jim, Tatti, Dave Feschuk, and Doogie. We got to do this fast. It's called Something to Chew On. Something to Chew On is brought to you by Boston Pizza's new game day menu. Stop by your local BP for $7 touchdown pints, shareables for the whole crew, and a weekly prizing up for grabs. Football game days are better at your local BP. I'd read it again, but we don't have any time. Go ahead, Doogie.
Well, guys, we're asking on Overdrive 1050, what is most likely to happen in the Toronto sports scene in 2025? Is it Leafs reach the Cup final, Raptors get the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, or Blue Jays finish last in the AL East? What do you guys think?
I'm going to go with the Jays last in the AL East. That's 2 years they've gone Christmas shopping and come up with stocking stuffers. So that's my pick.
Yeah, this is a unanimous one, I think. It's all about the Jays finishing last year. They're the favorites by a mile to finish last. All the teams around them are getting better, and they're twiddling their thumbs.
I agree with that as well, guys.
Okay, we're out of time. Hour number 3 is next.